everyone, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Allison.
This is Nerd of the Week, a randomly generated fandom podcast.
I almost thought you were going to do a weird voice there for a second.
A randomly generated fandom podcast. Oh, this is a horror episode. Not actually. I don't know why
maybe
I
it
picked
is.
that
You don't know what I'm bringing.
You're right. Forgive
it's
me.
Not a horror movie, though.
Mine is also not a horror movie.
Okay, so spoiler alert, it's not a horror episode. Hooray!
Hooray! Generator, would you like to remind everyone what our word is this time?
The word of the week is bottle.
Okay.
Message in a bottle.
All right. What do you think Google says the definition for bottle is?
It is a glass or plastic cylindrical vessel with a tapered neck that is used to hold liquid or other substances.
I like it. I like it. For some reason, I'm voguing.
Ooh, fancy. Ooh, wait, I think there might be another definition.
Ooh.
As in, like, a verb, like, to bottle, as in, like, to put something into a bottle and seal it as its way of being moved around from place to place.
I like it. I like it.
And Google might use a word of, like, she bottled up her emotions, even though that has nothing to do with what the word really means. That's just a metaphor. But I'm Google, so I'm going to say it anyway. All right, that's my impression of Google today.
I like it as, like, mildly sassy, like, Valley Girl style.
Oh my God, I'm Google, and today I'm going to tell you the definition of bottle. It's like this thing that you can put other things in, and you can, like, screw a top onto it, and you can, like, move it from place to place. And it's, like, so convenient, and, like, sometimes you can recycle them, too. And, like, that's so cool. But sometimes people don't recycle them, and then they end up in the landfill. And you know,
and
plastic takes, like,
cool.
a million years to degrade. And it's just so awful for the environment. So everyone should get this reusable bottle. It's called a water bottle. And you can put anything in it. But, like, water is in the name. So you should put water in it. And then you can just, like, use it forever. All right, how was that?
Oh, it's beautiful. You brought me to tears. I appreciate
that's my alter ego.
I appreciate the environmentalist message that you were giving too.
The environmentalist Valley Girl.
Yeah. She's going to aggressively get you to save the planet one water bottle at a time.
She shops at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
All right. Tell me what Valley Girl Google actually
Valley
says.
Girl Google says a container, typically made of glass or plastic, with a narrow neck. You did, with a narrow neck used for storing drinks and other liquids.
I kind of said that too.
You did, and the sentence is a bottle of soda pop.
Okay, they were more literal with it. That's not a sentence. That's just a noun.
Yeah, right.
It's a figment, a phrase.
Right. And then there's the verb. Basically, it's just bottling or place drinks or other liquids into a bottle or jar. And the sentence here is, the wine is then bottled.
Okay. Google went a lot more literal than it usually does with this one. Usually it's quite philosophical in its musings.
Oh, I guess there's another version of, like, store gas in a container under pressure. Huh. That's fair.
Okay.
I guess with, like, cans and stuff, like carbonated beverages and things.
Yeah. But I mean, that's still putting a beverage in a bottle. It just happens to be, that's more comment on the beverage, the type of thing
you're sticking, that you're sticking into it.
Oh well. We've argued with Google enough for today. Stay tuned next time for another Valley Girl Does Google. And I'd love to hear what I think you have to say. I think you go first.
I think you do.
What?
'Cause I have the quote this week.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're right. Yes, I do go first. Okay. Well, I'm ready. So I will tell you.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
It sounded like I wasn't ready. I really am, though. I promise.
I believe you.
So the thing I brought, it is another bit from the Adventure Zone. This time it's not the Bureau of Balance, though. This time it's from Ethersea.
Oh, man.
Which, for our listening audience, I'm sorry, there's a lot of Adventure Zone out there, and I'll try and explain it to you. So, Adventure Zone is a podcast made by the McElroy brothers and their father.
Brothers?
Yes, no, the McElroy brothers and their father, whose name is Clint. I've talked about them as an entity before when I talked on our train episode. It was for the Rockport Limited episode.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, they make the podcast Adventure Zone, which the premise of Adventure Zone is we are a family and we play like role-playing games. And there's different arcs or, different stories basically within that. So their first one that they ever did was the Bureau of Balance. And then within each of the arcs, there's like chapters essentially that are like different missions that the characters go on. So in this arc, this particular arc that we are talking about, it is called Ethersea, the Adventure Zone Ethersea. And it is basically they are playing Dungeons and Dragons in an underwater world of their creation where basically there's some sort of magical storm that has been brought down by the magical gods as punishment for the citizens of the world using magic, I guess.
And so it's not really clearly defined.
Yeah.
It's just coming.
Yeah. So they can't live on the surface anymore, but there is a voice that like beckoned them to live under the sea. So there's this whole like series of setup episodes where it's like a group of people who go down to the seashore and they spend a year basically figuring out how are we going to live under the sea.
Yeah, the mechanic is called The Last Year, and it sounds really cool, and I want to try it sometime.
Yes. It's like a version of a role-playing game. It's different than Dungeons and Dragons. It's basically like, how are you going to set up your world? So it's like you have some like rules laid down basically for it. It's not just like on the spot, like, oh, how does this work in the world? So it's like just so you have something set up for when you then actually start playing your game. So in this world, there's this city under the sea, and it's like, it's not quite like in bubbles. It's like a bunch of underwater submarines. Yeah. It's like a big submarine. We all live in the big submarine.
We all live in the big submarine.
Yeah. And it's constantly like getting added onto, and like there's like more docks and things, and people go out on like little missions outside of the city in their ships, except they're all submarines as well. Like they never go to the surface because the surface is all covered with debris from the surface.
Yeah,
from the
and it's also like
surface.
heavily implied that the air isn't really breathable anymore and things like that.
Yeah. But also, it's called Ethersea because there's like magical ether that's seeped into the water. So the water's not really habitable for them either. So they really have to like stick into their little bubbles. And then their city itself, like the air and the water filtration, things like that, it's all carried out by these magical giant phytoplankton that they sourced while they were still on the surface. Which part of that, there's another chapter within this arc that I'm not going to be talking about, where they basically go and have to replenish their phytoplankton because due to circumstances, there's a
very unfortunate accident.
But basically, then they end up going to like the bottom of the ocean where these phytoplankton came from. And then, I guess, spoiler alert, because I won't get to it in what I'm actually talking about. But by the end, one of the characters like passes on through a portal to the next world and becomes a god there. And it's kind of implied like that's what happened to this world too. Like all the gods, they're just like regular people from a different dimension.
Yeah,
and then suddenly they're here and they have magic and they pass it on to people, and so the cycle continues. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about Bottle. So how on earth does Bottle fit into this? Well, I'll tell you. So first off, for our characters that we're following this season or this arc first off, Griffin, the youngest brother, is the dungeon master again. So he is kind of directing the story and playing all the non-player characters or NPCs. For those of you with the terminology knowledge. And then Clint, who is the father, he is playing a character named Zooks, who is...
I love Zooks.
Yeah, Zooks, he's a good guy. We'll get into his characterization in a bit.
Such a himbo.
He's basically like the tank of the party, and he's this creature that they created while they were doing the world building called a Brynar. On the land, there was this civilization called the Einar, and they all, in an attempt to like save their little bit of land, basically like sacrificed themselves to their god, but they all didn't want to go. So there's these Einar ghosts that wanted to come back, and how they did that is basically coral bodies were grown essentially, and then they can like, I guess, kind of like haunt the coral bodies.
Yeah.
And
more or less,
instead of being Einar, they're Brynar, because like the brine of the sea. I get it.
Puns.
So that's what Zooks is. He's a Brynar, so he's just like this coral man walking around. And then there's Devo, who is played by Travis McElroy. He's the middle brother. And Devo he basically had grown up within the church setting. So he was like being like educated and like, I guess, shown the way of how he could eventually like inherit he was going to be head of the church basically when he grew up. But something in his past that they don't necessarily go into, but something happened where he like realized that he didn't actually like being part of the church. So he basically defected and is now no longer associated with them and holds some big grudges against them. And he's just like a human guy, and he's a little bit of a challenging character. He gets into fights a lot because he thinks he knows best, even though he's only like 20 years old.
Yeah.
So he's quite annoying. And then the final character, who I think might be my favorite.
I love her.
I don't know. I like them all, but it's Amber Gree, which is apparently a pun on something that comes from the sea.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's whale fat or something like that.
I think so.
It's like, what's the word? Petrified whale fat or something like that.
Okay.
And it's like really expensive because like people will I think people think it's an aphrodisiac or some nonsense, but regardless, it goes for like absurd amounts of money on the black market, but it's basically just like a rock.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, what she said, listener. That's what it is. So anyway, Amber is played by Justin McElroy, who is the oldest of the brothers. And she's like, I think like in her 50s at this point when the story takes place. She was actually like on the shore when they were figuring out how to get into the waters. She was a little bit younger then. And she was part of like this like alternative, not quite a cult, but just like, you know, like conspiracy theory kind of groups where it was headed up by this character they created called Uncle Joshy. And he believed that he could go and fight these awful monsters that came out of the magical sea called blink sharks. And they're called blink sharks because if you blink, they'll like change places. Like they move so fast and can teleport, and they're ferocious and the most awful creatures in the sea. And anyway, so Uncle Joshy thought he could fight them with the power of his mind, but Uncle Joshy is not a psychic fighter at all.
He's a scam artist.
Yes. Yes, he is. However, Amber, under her training with Uncle Joshy, discovered she actually was a psychic fighter. So her D&D class is a monk, and she has these like spectral arms that like extend out from her, and they're like 10 times as strong as her regular arms, so she can fight with 4 hands, and she's like real strong. But she's also like in one of the kind of interviews that they do to sum up the series, Justin, he said something like, I wanted to portray her as like kind of like a middle-aged woman from Appalachia, which is like a very specific type of person. And like, it's hard to describe what this type of person is. It's like, you know, they kind of mind their own business, but they also have like their real strong opinions. They don't really care. And like, even though they're older, they're still like real tough. Like that's kind of the vibe I get. I hope that's the vibe that they were going for. So that's Amber, and she's like the captain of the crew. They elected her to be captain just because she's like the oldest. And
Amber's room, no boys allowed.
Right? Yeah, they have this little ship. It's called the Coriolis. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's called the Coriolis. And she specifically bought this ship add-on. It was like a little pod that they could add on to it that she wanted to make as just her captain's quarters. And she has a sign on the door that says, Amber's room, no boys allowed. So Zooks and Devo are not allowed in there, even though they do end up going in there several times throughout the course
many times.
of... Yes, it's kind of like the running joke that everyone goes into Amber's room or Amber's place. Okay, so anyway, the reason that these three are all together is they're employed as a crew with, it's called the brokerage.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what the full name of it, but they just refer to it as the brokerage.
It's basically like an odd jobs place, right?
Yeah, it's like people contact the brokerage and say, hey, I've got a job that needs done. And basically then they send these crews out, like dispatch them to go take care of whatever it is. So in this particular chapter that I'm talking about, 15 minutes into this now, it's called the Abyssal Auction. And they were actually commissioned by Uncle Joshy. He was the hirer for this job. He didn't know it was going to be them. It just was a coincidence. Where basically he'd like them to go to this black market auction, the Abyssal Auction, and buy this really, really rare book that was like uncovered from wreckage from the surface. And he like has a buyer who's going to give him a lot of money for it, but he needs these emissaries to go to the auction for him because he can't go himself for undisclosed reasons. So anyway, they get hired to go to the auction. On how D&D works, for in the most part, when you're starting out on a quest, you can like have a random encounter where basically you roll a dice and there's a table that says, here's just like a fun thing that happens in addition to the quest that you're on.
Right.
And so Griffin has made up a chart of 100 different things that can happen. And he has his family, one of them each roll 100-sided dice before each mission. So Clint gets to roll a dice, the D100, and he rolls a 1.
And 1 is bad.
Yes. It's implied that like lower numbers are worse, like side missions that happen, and higher numbers are like, oh, you got like 100 gold or something like that.
Yeah.
So he gets a 1, and it doesn't come up really in this part of the arc. So it's not pertinent at all to the rest of what I'm going to tell you, but basically it's what then leads them to need to go find the phytoplankton later because they introduce a pathogen to the city and it kills the phytoplankton they had. Not pertinent at all to the auction. So on to the auction. So the auction being black market, they don't want anyone to like know the location of it, so they can't be traced back to it. So there's like this robot squid that comes and grabs their ship and takes them into a cloud of mysterious darkness, and they go leagues and leagues below the sea. And then they're not allowed to take any of their weapons in. And to protect everybody's identity, they wear these like holographic suits, essentially, that covers their whole body. And just like they're a certain color and they have a certain symbol that they're allowed to pick to like depict, I guess, to like show like we're all a party together. And like this is like the one thing to represent us, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think what Griffin wanted is for them all to pick the same symbol, but they didn't.
Yeah.
So they all have the same color, which they are aquamarine. So picture like these like plain black suits that you can't see through, and just like this glowing symbol above their heads that are aquamarine. So for Amber, since she fights blink sharks, she chose to have a blink shark be her face. Zooks chose... Oh, what did he choose? Oh, my goodness. Oh, a seahorse. Because part of what Zooks does. He controls like little swarms of sea life as his weapons, basically.
Druid, right?
I think he's like
or a ranger. I think he's a ranger.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a ranger because he uses his crossbow a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So his thing is like swarm magic, though, and he uses little seahorses a lot. So that's his symbol. And then Devo picks the scales of benevolence, which is like the sign of the church that he used to be part of. I don't know why he picked that, honestly.
It's a little on the nose.
Yeah. But, I mean, it was allowed, so that's what he is. So they go into the auction, and Griffin describes as like the single fanciest room they have ever laid eyes on. And it's like all covered in this really fancy wood paneling, which is unusual because under the sea, they don't really have wood anymore. Or if they do, it's usually like real warped and gross because it's been under the seawater for a long time. Mm-hmm. So this is like real fancy how they got this all down here. And then it has like this huge bay window that looks out into this like deep, 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 dark ocean. And there's like nothing out there. Mm-hmm. So it's like real far down there. And there's an announcement that says, all right, everybody, you've got an hour to like take advantage of the free complimentary drinks and food before we get the auction all set up for you. And so basically it gives them time to wander around, interact with some of the NPCs, and like figure out how are we going to get this book? Like, how are we going to complete the mission? Mm-hmm. I mean, theoretically, they're just going to buy the book and be gone with it. But Joshi says, you know, it's not guaranteed that you're gonna get the book, so you know, if you need to get it some other way, wink wink, I'm not gonna tell. So they're kind of like getting some plans together.
Didn't he also imply like, if here's this X amount of money and whatever you don't spend you can keep?
Yes. So he gave him, I think, 20. The currency that they've come up with is called Lux. Yeah, Lux for like luxury. So
luxurious.
Yes. So he gives them 20 Lux, and basically if they like only pay 15 for the book, they get to keep 5. You know, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then, like, if they go over that, they're going to have to just contribute it themselves or somehow else get the book.
Right.
All right. So, some other people that are there. First off, sitting at the bar is a trio of what Griffin describes as golden wolves. And so Amber's like, I'm going to go talk to them because they are the fanciest people in here. And she walks up to the bar and she's like, oh, howdy, partners. How's it going? You know, acting all like, I'm new here. I don't know anything. Like really putting on an act.
Yeah.
And the wolves, they're all like bougie and like, oh my God, you're so uncouth and we're so cool. And we just don't have the time of day to deal with you.
We're rich, snooty people.
Yes. And she's like, oh, well, you know, I'm real rich myself. I just recently came into it, though. You know, the lotto. I won the lotto. My time came. And she's like, but I don't know how to, like, do the auctions. Can you give me any tips?
I'm just a simple lady.
Yeah, I don't know anything. And the wolves are just, like, refusing to help her and just, like, putting her down and, like, thinking of how uncouth she is. And at one point, she's like, hey, you know what? I like wine, too. What are you drinking? And she tries to steal one of their glasses of wine. And like the other two like go to attack her, and the like head wolf like kind of makes them stand down. He's like, there are rules against attacking people here, but if you try and take my glass of wine again, then I might break those rules.
There will be consequences.
There will be consequences. And Amber's like, okay, I get it. You know, I'm real protective of my own brews too. And then Devo sees this all happening. He comes over and like puts a hand on Amber's shoulder, and he's like, I'm so sorry that my assistant has been bothering you. And the wolves are like confused now. They're like, how rich are you that you have an assistant who's also so rich?
Right.
Like they're not getting it that she was lying.
Yeah.
But Devo kind of like gets Amber to go away, luckily, and so she doesn't mess something up with these guys. Mm-hmm. But she goes and wanders over to like the bartender, and she's like, can I have a bottle of whatever they're drinking? So bottle, here we go. That's why I brought it. And the bartender's like, well, sorry, no, they actually brought their own bottle of wine, which is a little unexpected, but we have no rules against it. So there we go.
There's no rule about a dog not playing basketball.
Right. Yeah. So must be okay then. And so Amber's like, okay, well then, you know, get me whatever you have. Get me the cheapest thing. She forgot that everything was complimentary, so she could have had something nicer.
Yeah.
But she gets the cheapest thing. So the bartender like makes this big show of like going to the back and like getting out a bottle. Like he's treating her nice. He's not like putting her down for like, oh, you want the cheapest thing? Oh my God. Like he's a good guy. He's being polite. So he pours out this wine and she drinks it, like throws the whole shot back, basically is what she says. And she's like, yes, I love it. I'll take 3, 1 for me and my compatriots each. She's not going to share those with her compatriots.
Absolutely
so
not.
It's all for her. And then they name this wine. So the bartender, like, he goes into the back. This is all Griffin kind of talking in the character's voice. And he's like, may we have 3 glasses of the skunk nuts vintage, please?
I forgot about the skunk nut.
And then Amber's like, skunk nuts? Oh, geez, if I'd have known I was drinking skunk nuts, I would have ordered 3 more. So she has these 3 glasses of wine, and she goes and, like, after Devo has conversed with the wolves, he also didn't get any information from them. It was basically like he was trying to intimidate them with making them think that he was actually backed by the church money. But, like, they don't really have much respect for the church, so it wasn't working for him. So he meets it back up with Amber. She has already drank the first of her glasses of wine. And then she says, or Justin has the character do this. She, like, puts the bottle, one of the glasses down on the ground and just like walks 3 feet away from it, like pretending it's not hers so she can drink another one. And Devo, she offers one to Devo and he's like, no, I don't want that. Devo also speaks with a French accent throughout.
For some reason.
I'm not going to try and mimic it. He's the only one in Founder's Wake, which is the big city under the sea, that has this accent. And he was born there, so no one knows how he got this accent.
He just talks like this.
Yeah, he's just him. So anyway, their mission has been a bit unsuccessful in getting any sort of information. However, Zooks, he's a bit more successful. He goes over to the hors d'oeuvre table and he's talking to the little waiter who's there. And he takes a different route rather than pretending that he's rich. He's like, all these rich people, they don't have a care in the world. They spend money on and that, thousands of lux every single day. And Jeremy, the little guy who's the waiter, his name is Jeremy. He's like, I yes, sir, but, aren't you one of them? You didn't just like wander in here. And Zooks is like, oh, no. They just brought me aboard so I didn't have to sit on the ship. But, I'm just one of their crew members. I do their hair.
I just work here.
What a random thing for him to say. And basically he like convinces Jeremy that he's one of the boys. He's one of the workers. He's not one of these rich guys. And so he goes and like talks and he's like, hey, can you like tell me like what do these guys usually buy? And Jeremy like gestures towards the wolf guys and he's like, well, they come here a lot and they usually buy like the rarest things. Like they want all these like last of their kind things from the surface essentially. And Zooks is like, well, any idea what they're aiming to buy this time? He's, just trying to get information about like what kind of stuff is here. And Jeremy says, well, yeah, I heard that there's this real expensive bottle of wine that they really want to get their hands on. So like these guys, they are basically like wine connoisseurs and they want like all of these fancy wines that are like left over from the surface that they want to be the only ones who ever have them and can ever drink them, which that comes in a later chapter as well, where basically there's a lot of animals that were trying to be preserved, but people are stealing them so that they can be like the last ones to hunt them. Yeah. Which is messed up, but that's not what we're talking about right now. And anyway, so Zooks, he's like, to hell with them all. They shouldn't be able to do that kind of thing. And Jeremy's like, yeah, sir, I know what you mean. It's kind of stupid what they're doing here. And Zooks is like, you can do whatever you want. Why don't you take this plate of clams and just dump it in the trash can? And Jeremy's like, sir, I'd get in trouble. And he's like, nah, I'll cover for you. Don't worry. And he just like, Jeremy does it. Yeah. And while Jeremy is distracted, since they had to put their weapons away before they came in, Zooks grabs a carving knife and a pair of tongs off of the table.
Oh, right, the tongs.
So now he is armed, and the tongs will come in handy, I promise.
Yeah. Doesn't he convince Jeremy to, like, hold a riot or something?
Yeah, basically, like, by the end, which we'll get to in a second here, Jeremy has, like, formed, like, a workers' strike, essentially.
Yeah, like, they made, like, a workers'
no one's
union.
working there anymore. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to go back to Amber real quick, though. So she has drinking her 3 glasses of skunk nuts wine. And she's like, I want to, like, look for, or Justin, in his, you know, theoretical mind here, he is saying, you know, I want her to go find the security room so she can, like, maybe try and break in and become one of them. Mm-hmm. So he has Amber, like, wander into the security hallway and is, like, trying to, like, sneak a look at the computer screens, and then she's caught immediately. And the lie that she tells is, I was trying to find the bathroom, I have to go.
Classic.
And the guards are like, yeah, why would you think this is the bathroom? And she's like, it wasn't labeled. And they're like, there's a sign right there. Just, like, going back and forth. They're like, we have to take you into the security head office now. And she's like, I have to stop by the bathroom first, though. And Justin's argument is like, remember, Griffin, she has been drinking. She's not telling a lie. So you shouldn't make me have to roll for this on the dice. I should just get to do it. And Griffin's like, fair. Fine, yes.
Forgetting that persuasion exists.
Yes. So basically, Justin is getting a free pass in the game with his clever setup that he already did. The way that he's played Amber, like, he tries to make it seem like she has no idea what her next move is. But then, like, Justin himself, I feel like he has, like, almost everything that he wants her to do planned already.
Yeah.
Because he really does, like, a great job of setting up, like, little details in the beginning. And you're like, but remember, I said this. Like, he is so good at planning these elaborate heists ahead of time. Like, even though he doesn't know exactly what's up Griffin's sleeves, he's so good at it.
Yeah.
And he's so good at role-playing Amber as well. Like, his characterization of her is just, like, so good. I'm not doing a great job explaining it. You just have to listen to the podcast. It's really good. So anyway, she gets to go into the bathroom and she says, all right, I'm going to pretend to pass out. And also, to make it more believable, I want it to look like she peed her pants. And Griffin does make Justin roll to have Amber pee her own pants. And luckily, he got, like, a natural 20, so she was able to do it. Anyway, so then the guard is, like, outside the bathroom and he's been waiting for a while. And so he knocks on the door and is like, ma'am, I'm coming in there. And there's no answer. And he's like, all right, I want you to know that I told you that I'm coming in. So this can't come back to bite me. But I do have to check on you. So I am coming in the bathroom.
Right.
And he comes in. He's like, oh, no. Oh, no. And he, like, leans down to see, is she dead? And she's not. She's still breathing. And Griffin's like, are you going to, like, do anything? She's like, no, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. Nothing yet. And, like, the guard is, like, getting up to, like, turn around and, like, radio someone. And that's when Amber jumps up and, like, grabs him around the neck and strangles him. Or not strangles him. She, like, I think steals. They have these things called stun batons. They're basically, like, little tasers. So, like, non-lethal damage, essentially. We hope. But she's able to, like... Yes. There might be circumstances, though. So anyway, she is able to get the taser away from him. And she also, at the same time, like, zaps his hologram, like, they, like, wear these, like, necklaces. They call them collars, but they're, like necklaces, chokers, essentially, that produce the black suit and the hologram. And so she's able to, like, wrestle his away from him by getting it zapped off of his neck. And, like, switch clothes with him, basically. So now she is able to wear this suit that looks like she's a worker. All the workers have, like, this white pyramid above their heads to denote them, essentially. So now she's blending in. No one's going to question, like, oh, yeah, she belongs here. She has the workers sign. Like, that's what the workers wear.
Right.
And so she's able to get into the auction. So the auction has started. Zooks and Devo, they are not really sure where Amber has gone off to, but they just go into the auction to do their thing. So there's a few lots ahead of them. And there's this one guy, he has a blue star, and he was actually selling the fancy bottle of wine.
And he actually had made some friends with Devo before they went in, or basically, like, they kind of gained trust. The Blue Star guy wasn't, like, being mean to Devo. And Devo's like, you know what? I will help you. I'll drive the price on your lot up if you can tell me, you know, what would be the weakness of, like, how can I make sure that I am able to buy my lot?
Yeah.
And the Blue Star agrees. So when the first lot comes up, it's the bottle of wine, and they're like, this is a rare vintage, and it's the only one left in existence, and you'd be lucky to have it. And so the wolves are, like, bidding on it, and then Devo bids on it. He raises his hand. And the wolves, like, turn back and, like, look at him like, how dare you try and bid against us?
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's not trying to win. He doesn't want to buy this. He's just, like, bidding so that they have to pay more.
Right.
And it works. They end up paying a lot of money for this bottle of wine. And so Blue Star Man is pleased with that. Then there's this lantern that they have. It makes, like, a super bright light. And Griffin makes them roll, what's it called? Constitution throws to see, like, basically are they affected by this bright light? And Amber, I don't think Amber is in the room at that point. Devo, he's like, oh my gosh, it's like a searing light. It really hurts. He has a little bit of a headache. And Zooks, he doesn't really care. Like, it doesn't affect his coral physiology. And we also see throughout the rest of the audience, like, the wolves, they don't like that at all. Star guy, he doesn't really like it. But then there's this gaggle of little red cubes. Like, the red cube is their little sign. And they do not seem affected by it either. And that's the item that they're bidding on. And these people, they're like, they don't really talk. They kind of, like, chitter amongst themselves, and they're just, like, acting weird. Like, they don't, like, look around at things. They just, like, sit completely still and look forward.
Yeah.
So they're just, like, off.
They're creepy,
somehow.
yeah.
Yeah. So they get the lantern. Then finally we come to the book that is the journal that they were looking for from the surface that Uncle Joshy wanted. Apparently it has, like, archaic blueprints for some magical building design, I guess.
Sure.
And, like, once the wolves see that Devo's trying to bid on it, they, like, also try and bid on it, but decide, like, it's not worth it. It's just a book. It's dumb. And so luckily Zooks is able to, or Devo, excuse me, is able to secure it for them. I don't remember how much they ended up paying for it, but it was within their 20. So they were going to legally, I mean, as legal as a black market auction can be.
So not at all.
They were going to not steal it. They were going to get it by the rules, essentially.
Yeah. Get it by the auction that was set.
Yes. And as they're wheeling this lot out back to hold it in the vault so nothing happens to it until things can be settled up at the end, Amber follows it out just so she can, like, keep eyes on it, basically. And she's in the worker's garb, so no one, like, blinks an eye. It's just like, oh yeah, another person coming back in here to the vault, whatever, it's fine. When she gets there, she's accosted by these other people. It was what were they? Silver Stags was what these people looked like.
Okay.
And they had already kind of discerned, like, ooh, these people might be, like, from the city guard, which they're called not the custodians. Oh gosh, what are they?
Oh God.
Oh my goodness, what are they? I can't remember what they're called. We're just gonna call them the city guards, like the militia. They're basically, like, the protective force for the city, and they're commanded by their ship. Like, they all have this little, like, intelligence that speaks to them, like, telepathically from their big ship that they live on, which is called the Biggest Baby, which they named. That was something from the surface, but basically it was made of this metal that came from the skeleton of an old god. So the old god lives within the ship and commands the military. So anyway, they are back there because they wanted to get this piece of metal. Codite is what they've called it, from the god Coda.
Okay.
And they wanted to get this piece of metal that was for auction. They're like, it never should have been for sale. This is rightfully ours. We are the militia. And Amber's like, okay, I'm not going to get in your way if you don't get in mine. And they're like, oh, we're also going to take this book. And she's like, okay, now I have to engage in battle. And so she gets out her spectral monk arms and is like fighting these guys. So she's already knocked out the one guy in the bathroom. She now like uses her taser and like tases the neck of one of these other guard guys, but she does it too good and like basically almost kills him. He's like barely alive. And then she's like punching the other guy and like basically Amber's thing is she's real good at punching and she punches the guy real good. And basically she has now knocked out 2 of these really tough militia guards. And at the same time, back in the auction hall, suddenly there's chaos because the red Q people, they like run up and grab the lantern and they shine it so everybody is blinded. And chaos ensues because they start like punching everyone and trying to like steal whatever relics are left in there. And Amber, Devo, and Zooks, they like we just got to get out of here. This is not our fight. We just need to leave. But they can't leave because all the exits are being closed. And like at this point, this is when Jeremy and the rest of the workers, they like get on the one like escape boat, the escape pod, and they like just go away. We don't care about this fight. This is not our fight either. We're gone.
Right, we're dipping.
And then outside the huge window, there's this huge coral ship that appears, but it's not coral like fancy pretty colors like Zooks is. It's coral like bleached and dead coral. And it has this big spike that they shoot through the window, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so water like starts kind of seeping in around it, and they're like, okay, we are about to be imploded here with the weight of the whole sea upon us. We have to leave right now. But the auctioneer is still like, nope, you're not allowed to leave until you settle your debts with us. And like, he's just all like calm, like nothing's happening here. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And so like Amber and Zooks, they're like, well, hey, we just like saved you from a bunch of things. Like, gosh, they saved someone from something. I forgot exactly what it was. I think from somehow the little coral people. I'm so sorry. I don't remember. But anyway, they did a heroic act and they're like, we should get a discount on our book at least. And so the auctioneer's like, fine, a discount is applied. And so they still pay something, but they get a little extra cash than they thought they were going to. But then the wolves, they're like, well, I don't want to pay. I just decided I wanted a discount too. And like the blue star guy, he's the one, remember, who was selling the bottle of wine. And he's like, no, come on, you just buy it, guys. We got to get out of here right now. And like neither side is letting it go. The wolves want a discount. The blue star doesn't want to give him a discount, but wants his money. And it's like, just like, come on, guys. Life or death.
Right.
It's just a bottle of wine.
It's
Deal
not
with it.
important. Let's go.
But to them it is.
Right.
Oh, to the wealthy it is so important, apparently. And Amber's like, okay, I will deal with this. And she goes and knocks out the wolf guy. And then she like zaps his collar off too, so they can see who it is. And it's this guy who's given them problems in the past, Aloysius Supreme. And he's actually like the minister of commerce in the city, and he should not be. Like, he is not qualified for the job. He does not deserve it. He's only in there to like serve his own purposes. So he's been exposed now, and they have like something they can blackmail him with if they want to. But basically, they like rifle through his pockets. They get his credit card and give it to the blue star guy. And they're like, all right, you take his credit card and him and get yourselves out of here. And then we'll get ourselves out of here and, just stay safe. At this moment, since the card has been passed on to the blue star guy, so things will be settled, the auctioneer is like, all right, you may now go. And he just like starts dissolving, and we find out he wasn't a real person. He was just a hologram, like completely.
Yeah.
Like the hologram suit was all that was there, and he was like being operated remotely from somewhere else. So that's why he was so chill. He didn't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
Yeah, so he evaporates right as like the walls are starting to creak, and you're like, oh no, things are gonna happen. So the only way out is through this like service tunnel where there's this huge ladder that goes all the way down to the docks, wherever they are in the depths of the ocean. And they have to like make these acrobatics checks to get themselves down the ladder, okay? And there's at one point where like Devo almost falls, and Amber like catches him with one hand, And it's like, okay, so Devo, you almost died, but Amber, you saved him from dying, so you have to take some harm on your shoulder. And then Devo's like, oh, right, but it's okay, because I'll heal her right away. So hashtag mechanics of D&D. We can save people right away.
Yeah.
So they all make it down the ladder. Once they get down there, Blue Star Guy and Aloysius Supreme are taken to their ships. We never see from them again in this arc, which is fine. Our crew, they're trying to get back to the Coriolis, and we realize like their dock is underwater somehow, and there's an alarm going off. And their little squid guy, who was like the thing that towed them to the auction to begin with, he's somehow like gone berserk and turned against them, and they have to fight the squid to get to the Coriolis to get inside. And like first Zooks jumps into the water because as a Brynar, the ether sea doesn't actually affect him, so he's able to like breathe underwater and actually like needs the water a little bit to survive. So he's fine under there, and he uses the tongs to like stab the squid, and he creates a hole in the side of it, and then he like worms his whole body in through this hole somehow to get into the inner workings of the squid to like deactivate it basically, which it works. It's very good. However, Amber didn't realize what was happening, so she also jumps into the water, but does a very bad job and gets hit by a tentacle and goes unconscious. So she's drowning, and she's also lost too many hit points in the game. So she's basically making death throws. So basically what that means for you non-D&Ders is you gotta roll some dice to see if your character stays alive or if they die forever. So she's in the midst of that. And Devo, he doesn't know how to swim because he's been in the church for his whole life, and he like just recently got out, but he needs to save his friends. So with a rush of adrenaline, he suddenly is able to swim, again thanks to the mechanics of D&D and the good dice rolls that Travis rolled for him. And he's able to like swim down and like point Zooks in the right direction, and then like grab Amber and cast another healing spell on her so that she has more hit points. So she doesn't die. She's brought back to life. And they all make it back up to the surface and get into the Coriolis. And at this point, Justin says, okay, so Amber, she like spent a few minutes trying to get all of the water out of her body that she could. And then she runs into Amber's place and she sits at the wall and stares at it for the remainder of the journey.
Valid.
Which, yes, just like zone out and reconstitute yourself.
Right.
And so they have the journal, though. They've completed the mission. They make it back. They get it back to Uncle Joshy, and they get their money.
Woo.
And they live to see another day.
Woo.
Woo. So that was the Adventure Zone Ether Sea Abyssal Auction.
Heck yeah. It's fun. I like the setting of Ether Sea.
Oh, me too.
So, like, it's such a vibe.
Yeah, like undersea wonderfulness. Oh, also the theme song for it that Griffin, quote, composed. I say quote because it's basically Claire de Lune, but he like made it kind of like island vibey, kind of.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, take like steel drum island music basically, and like make Claire de Lune that. I don't know, it's very cool, and I really like how he did it, and it just like sets up the vibe so perfectly of like kind of steampunk under the ocean magical.
Yeah. It's just pretty, and like all the stuff he does with the music is just like, he's very talented at making music feel like it fits the setting very well.
Yeah. So good. You've listened to the whole Ether Sea, right?
I have. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
I have not partaken in Steeplechase yet, but I have listened.
Really?
Yeah, I only listened to the first episode of Steeplechase, but I haven't gotten through it just yet. I've been trying to finish some books.
I see. That's fair. I listen to podcasts, I think, more than I read books because I can listen to podcasts and do other things like clean and like run. For books, I have to like hold those in front of my face.
See, I have audiobooks.
I mean, I guess I could do audiobooks,
yeah,
but
that's what I do usually is I'll have like a physical book that I'm reading, but then I'll also have like an audiobook that I'm listening to. And there's a couple that I've been trying to finish because I've had them forever. And I'm like, I need to do this.
Yeah. No, I'm not bashing books. They're great too. Okay.
All right.
Well, I'm sorry. I took so long to explain all of that.
Okay. Mine's going to be pretty short.
Okay.
So it'll balance out in the end.
But we need a quote first.
I do have a quote. So the quote is, I got your picture. I'm coming with you. Dear Maria, count me in. There's a story at the bottom of this bottle, and I've got a pen.
Oh. Okay. It sounds like a song.
You are right.
Okay. I'm going to think about what song it could possibly be. Gonna sing some tunes in my head while you tell me about your thing.
If you know the quote, listener, feel free to let us know on various forms of social media. We got Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Tumblr and kind of Twitter, if that still exists. And you can use, or X or whatever it's called now. And you can find us using the hashtag Nerd of the Week or hashtag NOTWP. We'd love to hear from you.
Yay!
Yeah. And then I am going to bring to the table Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus.
What now?
It's a PlayStation 2 video game that absorbed a lot of my life in the early 2000s.
Okay.
So it is 2002, I think, is when it came out. I don't know that I think I got into it a little bit later because I knew the second one was out. But basically, it's a video game franchise about Sly Cooper, who is a raccoon, and he is a master thief, or he comes from a long line of master thieves.
Okay, so is he himself not actually?
Not yet. So when he was really little, so his dad was a master thief, and I think his mom was. I don't really know on that front. But when he was really little, his dad had pissed off a group called the Fiendish Five, and they were various other thieves, so like different types of thieves, basically, or like functionally like mob or gang bosses. And his dad, I think, had decided to get out of the business to raise his kid and just like have a good life. But they have what's called the thievius raccoonus, which is like this masterwork book of all of the various Cooper clans thieving techniques. So very like ways to pickpocket locks and like how to climb through things and like all this stuff. So basically it's this big book of how to do stuff. And so the Fiendish Five came in, and Sly was hidden like in the grates or something like that, and his parents were killed by the group. So he never got the training. Hashtag tragic backstory TM. And so Sly never got the training that he was supposed to get from his dad to become a master thief. So he ends up in an orphanage where he meets Bentley and Murray. Bentley is a turtle who is they're all anthropomorphic, but Bentley is a turtle who is like basically like the brains of the operation situation. So he's like the tech guy. So he's the one who does all the like getting the plans and getting the blueprints and knowing where the security systems are and things like that. And Murray is a hippo, and he is he's basically like the muscle and the getaway driver. So he's got this like really like, you know, the getaway car should be like this nondescript vehicle, but it's like this giant van with like a satellite dish sticking out of it and like all the latest for 2002 tech gear sticking out of it, and like has Sly, because like he's a master thief, so he has a calling card, has like his calling card like painted on the van. So like any good detective would have found this car almost instantly, but it's fine. But he meets them in an orphanage, and he like regales them with stories of the thievius raccoonus and the book that he was supposed to inherit and all this. So they basically become like a bunch of little menaces in the orphanage. And like their first heist is they steal the cookie jar from Mrs. Puffin, like who was just the director of the orphanage trying to give these kids a good life. But like,
oh no.
So they go and like they do all these little plots and they come up with the perfect plan and all that. So that's like early days. You get kind of their story through like flashbacks and like Sly kind of talking about it in like interludes and just giving you more information. And then the other more important character to bring up is because she's kind of the on again, off again romantic interest as well, but it's Inspector Carmelita Fox, and she is the detective that has been basically trying to catch Sly, and she's like, she gives like Carmen Sandiego vibes, or like the detective following Carmen Sandiego, where like she absolutely does not have jurisdiction in these different countries, but she is like so dead set on catching him when they like, because they jump from like country to country, doing different things and stealing different stuff. So she's like, I want to say like Interpol, but I'm not 100% sure. But functionally, she's like literally her job is to try to catch Sly and his group, because they start really small time and then they like build themselves up, and then as they're getting bigger, Sly figures out a little bit more. He gets like a lead from the Fiendish Five, one of the first characters, and it's when he's breaking into the police headquarters. So the first there's like 5 different air quotes stories, I think they're called, or episodes or whatever. So there's the prologue, which is the police headquarters, where you kind of get like, it's the tutorial level and you get a little bit of information. But Sly's sneaking in, you meet Carmelita Fox, you meet the getaway driver, or you meet Murray and Bentley, and they're going through to figure out or like get information on the first of the Fiendish Five, because they had heard that he had had some info, and they were hoping that by getting that information that Sly could steal back the pages of his family's heirloom, and then also he could get revenge for his parents' death. So it's kind of a revenge plot. It's it's like a dark story, but there's a lot of goofy lines, and like there's a lot of comedy in this game, and it's very silly. One of my favorite bits is right at the beginning with the police, where you're learning how to do stuff. The police are all like really big elephants, and they're you're calling under tables and trying to just like avoid them, and the lights keep flickering on and off. And if you hang out, because they'll like talk to each other and have a little banter, and at one point the lights go off and one of the elephant police officers to the other goes, "You look a lot better in the dark."
Rude.
So Sly breaks into the vault, leaves his calling card, which is basically like a cutout of his face, and like because he wears like this little beret hat thing, and so it's like his calling card is basically his face with his hat on it. And then Sly gets up to the rooftop and is gonna like escape through the fire escape, and then Carmelita spots him because she kind of had set a trap like waiting, so Sly has tripped a silent alarm, and then they have this like brief, like you get your first introduction of, oh, these two flirt continuously, like they do not stop flirting the whole time. And then Sly is acting like he's caught as Murray like rides up, and he does one of those like rooftop falls where he lands onto the van, and then they drive off as like Carmelita's like shooting wildly into a busy street with people on it, but it's fine. No. And
does she have as good an aim as the
stormtroopers? Yeah.
Yes, the stormtroopers.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the Death Warriors. That's not anything.
The Death Warriors. It kind of sounds like something. I'd be willing to buy it.
Like Death Star. I don't know where Warriors came from. Okay, sorry. Sorry. Didn't mean to bring Star Wars into this.
It's okay. There's nothing wrong with bringing Star Wars into it. So then the next episode, so like chapter 1, is the Tide of Terror. And they always like start it. It's kind of like they show it like they're cartoons. So like they'll have like the episode title and it'll like have an intro sequence. And
cute.
Yeah, it's very stylized too. Like it still holds up to this day. Like it's a little bit polygony, but it's still like just very overly stylized. The cutscenes are more cartoon drawings or like a cartoon episode, so like they got away with a lot with not having as much technology. But the first of the Fiendish Five is known as Sir Riley the Frog, and he's this like ridiculous looking frog who has this like giant top hat, and he the way his backstory is brought up is like, unlike the rest of the Fiendish Five, he didn't have like a tragic backstory. He just was bored with his life of wealth and privilege, and so he developed an interest in piracy when he was riding on a yacht.
An interest?
Well, so he was on a yacht, and then a pirate tried to take him over, and then he bested the pirate, and then he was like, this seems fun, I'm gonna keep doing this.
I can do this.
Yeah. And so he builds, like, he's also got, like, he's kind of in the league with Bentley, where Bentley actually respects him because he builds, like, robots and stuff. So he makes, like, robot pirates. And,
okay.
yeah. And
This plot is getting more and more convoluted.
It's all over the place. More important bits is that Riley, when he attacked Sly's father's house, this is where they kind of discover the book was ripped into a bunch of pieces. So each one of the Fiendish Five has a page of the thievius raccoonus, because apparently it's only 5 pages for the first game, and then they add more. But he escapes with the notes of Ricochet Cooper, and he lands on the Isle of Wrath, and which he makes a like perpetually generated harsh rain and wind so that like he can sink passing ships and then loot them and then like sell them for money. So how Bottle comes into this is that during the game, so like each chapter it opens up, and it's not quite open world where you can go everywhere you want, but you have to like there's a little bit of platforming, but like you definitely backtrack, and like once you get stuff you can go to another location, and like you slowly open up the world while you're sneaking through, avoiding guards, that kind of stuff. And it's definitely like more classic video game where there's just kind of collectibles sitting out in the open where you need so many of them. And one specific thing is the clue bottles, and every level has 30 clue bottles, and they are a nightmare to find all of them. But
you have to find all of them to like win?
Okay. So they're collectible, and they give you upgrades if you get all 30, because you can open the vault, and then the vault lets you get a different page, or like it's basically like getting you an upgrade. And so, and then it makes it easier to collect things or sneak through things and things like that. You need it for like 100% playthrough, but you don't need it to finish the level. And so if you don't find them, and I never found them on the first ride through, like you just kind of go through. And sometimes you need like the level ups, because each page of the thievius raccoonus gives you like a level up, and then Sly's able to do another thing, like he's able to jump on like little posts instead of just like having to stare at them and be like, I wonder what's up there. So like they build it so that you have to go back to those levels and play it through again once you've gotten all the power ups so that you can collect more stuff. It's a clever way to build replayability, and then you can find extra things and get better.
Now, if you wanted to, would you be able to like just start from the beginning fresh again? Like if you wanted to replay the whole game?
Yep. So this was the era of save cards, so you would just download that save on the save card, and then if you wanted to just start from scratch, you would just open up a different save. Yeah, so that's how Bottle comes into it, is like every level you have to collect the bottles to open the vaults. So after a bunch of shenanigans through the Tide of Terror, every level ends with you fighting one of the Fiendish Five. So first you fight Riley, and and you reclaim the thievius raccoonus page, and you get the ninja. This is the jump, the ninja spire jump, because his Ricochet Cooper was a ninja, not what I would think with that name, but he was a ninja, who developed this technique while I think it was sneaking through feudal Japan, because of course he did. And while you're defeating Riley, Carmelita Fox shows up, and so you have to get a quick getaway out of this area, and Carmelita takes solace in the fact that at least she gets to arrest Sir Riley, even though she doesn't get Fox because he slips away, or he doesn't get Sly because he slipped away. And then they take a vacation to England while they plan their next trip, and then we go on to the Sunset Snake Eyes, and that's chapter 2. Which is set in Mesa City, which is set up to be like the Old West, kind of.
Oh, okay.
And the antagonist is Mugshot, who is this bulldog. I think he's a bulldog. And his name is spelled with 2 G's, because of course it is. And Mugshot was the runt of the litter and was picked on a bunch. And so his only friends were those that he watched in like westerns and movies and things like that. And his favorite movie was The Dogfather. And that's where he first saw his first gangster. And so that's when he knew he was going to be a gangster. And so
these people turning to piracy and gangsterism just from passing fancies.
It's fine. I mean, he was picked on a lot, and he was like the weakling because he was the runt of the litter. So I think he had a little bit of pent up aggression that could have been dealt more appropriately through therapy. But, you know, becoming a gangster, also fine.
You know, if I know anything about bulldogs that are aggressive, they really can't be reasoned with.
You're not wrong. Of everyone to pick, a bulldog makes sense.
Yeah.
So he gets recruited into the Fiendish Five, and he serves as their like enforcer. So he serves like the muscle side of things, but obviously a little bit worse of a person about it. So you go through this level, do the same thing, where you sneak through, and he's got Tennessee Kid's Cooper, Sly's gunslinging ancestor, whose specialty was the rail walk and the rail slide, so you can like slide from place to place.
Okay.
It was the early 2000s. Because he was an Old West thief, if you didn't get that from the Tennessee Kid part. So you have...
Tennessee is not in the West.
Well, I mean, look.
I get it. It's
he came
fine.
from Tennessee, and then he went to the Wild West, so then everyone called him the Tennessee Kid. I have no idea. I don't know the deep lore of the Cooper family.
Why not? How dare you bring this piece of media and not know every little thing about it like that? So go on. Please tell me more. Please.
So you defeat Mugsley, and he... very similar to Sir Riley, where Carmelita just comes in the nick of time right as you're defeating. So she busts Mugshot instead. And Sly and the gang dip out of Mesa City. And then they have like a road trip in America cutscene where they're like doing various things along Route 66 before they go back to... They go back to Paris for like their next sit down and plot everything. And then we go to Vicious Voodoo, which has the set in the jungles of Haiti, and it's the alligator Ms. Rupee, but Ms. is spelled MZ. And she was born to a family of mystics and was feared by other children because of her strange mystical powers. So she was trying really hard to fit in and just wanted friends, so she kind of accidentally became a necromancer and and summoned a bunch of...
Not something that most people accidentally become.
She's like a voodoo-y witch, and then accidentally, oops, now my best friend's a skeleton. So obviously that definitely totally endeared her to other children. But so then because she was bitter and she didn't have any friends, she used her voodoo talents to for crime instead, basically, and became the chief mystic of the Fiendish Five. I don't know what that entails, other than she looks into a crystal ball, like, menacingly, and then apparently it was helpful for the Fiendish Five's various heists and nonsense.
Well, knowing the future of how your plans are going to turn out is usually helpful.
Maybe it's that. Maybe it was like a prediction or like where things were going to be. Or I have a feeling she was like the plannings guy or like the plan guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was just really good at logistics, but made it pretend like the mystics were telling her. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like, the ball tells me it's going to rain on Tuesday.
Right. And not the weather app I have installed on my phone.
Yeah.
So she took away Sly Tonk Hammond, I think. It's some strange name that was... I think he's supposed to be like a King Tut style, ancient Egypt-esque Cooper. But that Cooper's technique had the power of invisibility, which is the most useful in a thief game. And so it wasn't like true invisibility where like if you walk you can see, but if you crouch and like stop and don't have any motion, then when like the guards would sweep over you, they wouldn't see you, they just pass right over you, which super useful for this game, because before then you get like flagged all the time and then you have to like run away, and because like Sly is definitely very much a rogue and very squishy. Like you can fight your way out of stuff, but it is much better to like run and hide and not take out the villains. You fight her. Hers is like a Dance Dance Revolution style battle. I remember this one so strongly because you had to be so spot on and it took forever to beat her level. Because she would like send out things and then you'd have to try to like dodge her attacks with her like mystic attacks, but they were always like, because the PlayStation's got like the triangle, X, square, and circle, so she would send like a triangle, a square, an X, and a circle at you. Then once you defeat her, Carmelita again shows up and captures her, and they make the production of zombies illegal for the World Peace Accord so that she can spend the rest of her life behind bars because they don't want her to make any more zombies.
I feel like even behind bars, your powers can still work and she could still make zombies.
Right. Like, just because it's illegal.
You are talking about zombies again.
I know.
By the way. What's up with that?
You know, I didn't think about it until just now. It's not the main reason I came in here with this. But somehow, some way, it'll either be space or zombies. Or zombies in space. Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have Fire in the Sky, which is the next arc. And this is with the Panda King, and it's set in China. And he, very much when I saw Kung Fu Panda for the first time, I was like, but it's just the Panda King. Like, oh no, he's gonna be evil. But obviously he's not evil. But
no, Poe's not evil.
Poe's a good boy.
You can't speak like that about my Poe.
But yeah, I know. But like, Poe's a good boy. We love him.
I know. Okay.
The Panda King, however, not a good boy.
No.
He is the pyrotechnician. So he was really obsessed with fireworks and would set them off every Chinese New Year and things like that. And
no, that's not a bad boy.
He wanted to train with the best of them, and because he was born into poverty, the rich jerks wouldn't let him. So then he started to use his tools for crime by destroying villages with his fireworks. So he became a bad boy because of classism. But, fair enough.
He could have just, like,
been really good.
The best.
Right.
Yeah,
been really good, and then had people pay him money because he was better than the masters. Yeah. But crime.
But okay.
But crime
fine.
instead. And so he has a firework technique called Flame Fu. And when you fight him, you have to do like a full-on like battle with him where he's like firing off fireworks at you as you're trying to not, and like you do these like mildly kung fu moves as you like dodge away from him. And he stole, I think it's Otto Van Cooper's Thievius Raccoonus page, which I don't remember what his was. I don't think it was as important as being invisible, but I think
It's not super cool.
but I think it had something to do with a plane. I think he developed planes or something like that, and then that helped them upgrade
Wow.
the van so that they could get to the main villain. I think. I'm not.
That seems kind of important.
I'm a little fuzzy on the details on that one. Because, like, you get to this one and then you basically jump into the Clockwork stage. So, like, it's very much like a, oh crap, now I'm fighting the main villain. So, the main villain is Clockwork in the last chapter, The Cold Heart of Hate, which is just such a good, like, evocative phrase. And we are dealing with Clockwork, who is this clock owl. So his name is Clockwork with W-E-R-K as opposed to W-O-R-K. But he is the leader of the Fiendish Five, and he doesn't usually operate with them, but more funds their nonsense and their thieves and their crime. And he was kind of like building them up because he's consumed with this jealous rage for the Cooper clan, and he's the one who ordered the hit on Sly's parents. And so we don't really know his exact origin, but at some point he's kind of got like a General Grievous situation going on, where at one point it's implied that he was completely an owl, but over time he like slowly replaced himself with like mechanical parts so that he could live for a long, long time and get like fabulously rich and some other stuff and, you know, just general villain things. And the final boss battle is a nightmare because it's like in like 4 stages, and it's all set up like similar to the fights that you had with the Fiendish Five individually. Now they're all like built into this final like battle, and like that's hard enough getting through. And then you have his like stupid overpowered moves at the end where he just like does this crazy wing sweep, and then you get killed, and then you're back at the beginning and you're screaming at the computer because you're very mad that you're not winning.
As you do.
As you do. But eventually, with lots of screaming, you are able to defeat Clockwork, and Sly is able to completely reclaim his birthright of the thievius raccoonus, and he's super thankful for Murray and Bentley helping him out. And it's implied they like go their separate ways for a little bit because Carmelita got real close to arresting both of them, and Sly doesn't want his friends to get arrested, so he's like, we gotta lay low for a while. And right toward the end, Carmelita's there, like she ends up helping you defeat Clockwork in like the final cutscene, where she'll shoot like fireworks at him to distract him so that you can like go in and like go for the killing blow. And then afterwards she kind of lies and is like, I'm totally not gonna arrest you, JK, I'm arresting you. But Sly distracts her, but with a kiss, and then like gets himself out of his handcuffs and like disappears into the shadows, and then like heavily implied there's going to be a second game, which there is, and I think there's like a third one.
Oh, good.
too.
I was gonna say, is there?
Yeah, there's
Good.
I think because it's the Thievius Raccoonus, Band of Thieves, Honor Among Thieves, and then Thieves in Time. I don't think I played Thieves in Time, but I played like the first 3, and they're very fun. And Clockwork, surprising no one, comes back to continue to be the villain because he's mostly made of mechanical parts, and he is out for revenge, and revenge will keep you alive. And that is the joy and the chaos that is Sly Cooper.
That is very good. It seems absurd.
It is.
And ridiculous.
It's very fun.
And charming.
I love the art style. It is very charming. The jokes are top notch. It's a very fun and goofy game. And also it has heists in it, which is always a good time.
Yes.
No one's
You know what? You really should listen to Steeplechase because it's got heists too.
I know.
That's your thing.
I know. I've been meaning to because I know it's basically heists, the D&D game.
But getting back to your thing here, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Have you played the second one?
Yes, I played Band of Thieves, and I played Honor Among Thieves, which have their own ridiculous spots set up similarly, where you like go through and defeat like certain things. Like the second one has Dimitri, who is this like lizard guy. I love him. Of
course he is.
Yeah, right. I love him. He runs a casino where he basically like scams people out of money and whatever, but he has like, if you do specific things, you unlock this ridiculous song that he sings. And the bit that I remember is him going, "Juice? Who's got the juice?" And it's just part of his song, and the rest of the song is just like, "Let's dance." And so you're like, okay, it's like a casino club thing, and then out of nowhere, "Juice? Who's got the juice?" Which is probably, at the age of like 12, I didn't realize it was probably like a metaphor for like alcohol, but I still think it's just apple juice.
Sometimes I think with gangsters, don't they mean like, oh, the juice is flowing if it's like
money,
interest on your loan?
Maybe it's money.
At least, again, going back to the McElroy brothers, I feel like that's what they say.
Maybe
sometimes when they're making fun of people owing other people money.
Having never been in a gang, I wouldn't know, but
maybe we can be randomly inspired, just like these fine characters were, for their odd interest.
Their odd desire to run various criminal organizations.
No, I don't think that we should say that we're in a gang. That
No.
seems bad. Actually, quick story real quick.
Uh-huh.
When I was in, I think, 7th grade,
Okay.
we had like this, it was like study hall, kind of like homeroom, I guess, where like you'd go and like sit in a classroom at the end of the day for 30 minutes for a waste of time, basically.
Yeah.
And mine was with my English teacher that year.
Mm-hmm.
And he convinced this real gullible guy in class that I was the leader of an all-girls gang in our small little town. And this little guy, he's like, "Wait, what? Really? Really?" Like he didn't know what to think. He didn't quite believe it, but also he didn't know what the truth could possibly be otherwise.
Right. Well, if it's not that, what else could it be?
Right?
That you're not in a gang?
I've put that life behind me. No.
I knew it. I knew it.
I know. There was always something fishy.
It's always the quiet ones.
Well, see, that was the angle that my English teacher took. It's like, you wouldn't think it of her, but yeah, really, you gotta watch out. But I think it was funny. And also, it's always nice to be like enough of a teacher's pet that they'll make up stories about you to the other kids.
Right, yeah. Says the hardened gang member. Be a teacher's pet.
Yeah. Oh, no.
All right. Would you like the quote again?
Yeah, I was going to say before more falsehoods are spread on the internet. What else?
All right. Quote one more time for you. I've got your picture. I'm coming with you. Dear Maria, count me in. There's a story at the bottom of this bottle, and I'm the pen.
So the pen's at the bottom of the bottle?
You're also at the bottom of the bottle.
Everyone's in the bottle.
Yeah, somewhere.
I have no idea.
Okay, it's a song. It was, I realize now that you're not really on TikTok as much as I am. So I had thought that you would have seen this on TikTok because there was like a trend going around with this song with anime opens because it's at the right beat that it fits with almost every anime open song.
Okay.
So it's called Dear Maria, Count Me In by All Time Low. And
okay. I mean, I might have heard the song.
I have a suspicion you've heard it before. Because it was released in 2007, I think. And it was rather big because All Time Low was pretty big at that time.
Right when I was in my gang. So
yeah.
I had other things to worry about.
But I have a feeling if you played it, you would at least know parts of it.
Okay. All right. We've derailed this podcast far
Quite
too
enough.
long. Far too much. Sorry, I got really close to my microphone.
Hello.
Hi. Sorry, listener, I'm on the floor of my bedroom. I'm not sitting in my regular desk chair.
Just vibing.
So the microphone's just everywhere.
I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere.
I was trying to do laundry. I was trying to multitask, and this is what happened. So anyway, sorry
chaos.
for the audio quality.
Generator, help us on this podcast. What is the next word?
The next word is obligation.
It is obligation. We are much obliged.
Oh, yeah, there you go. We are much obliged to have you have gotten to the end of this podcast. That was not a sentence that made sense, but it's fine.
No.
If you got a sensible chuckle from our Valley Girl or our inability to keep on target today.
How could I be both a Valley Girl and a gang member?
Valley gang member?
Oh my God. So like this other day we were trailing this guy and like he went to the jewelry store and we like totally figured out where the important gems are kept. And so like later me and the boys are going to go around and we're going to like steal these gems and we're going to be so rich. And then we're going to like bring him back to the boss and he's going to promote us.
We're going to have like a pool party afterwards.
But you better not double cross us because we'll be like in so much trouble.
Oh my gosh. Actually, going back to Steeplechase, there's a character who's exactly this character in Steeplechase. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Honestly, I would watch the heck out of that if that was like a cartoon or something like that.
No, the Griffin came up, or no, it was Justin. Justin came up with this character. Her name is Schlebethany. And she's a Valley Girl gangster. Okay, sorry, it all comes together now.
It's
we
full
need
circle.
to end the podcast. It's perfect. Okay.
It's the perfect amalgamation. So thanks for listening.
This was a long one, sorry.
Our ending is going very well. As always, I've been Stephanie.
And I've been Allison.
And
Thanks so much for listening to this podcast.
And this has been Nerd of the Week. We're not gangsters, and this is still not a pyramid scheme.
We need to have a lot of disclaimers at the end here. Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.